Once upon a time in a peaceful village in Tripura, there lived a priest and his wife who were devoted to performing rituals and spiritual activities. So busy were they with their duties that they had little time to tend to their household or agricultural work known as huk, a form of shifting cultivation practiced on the hills. For that reason, their two beautiful daughters, Raima and Saima, took charge of the huk, working hard to maintain the family's livelihood. One usual day, as the sisters were laboring in their fields, a sudden fierce storm swept through the hills. The wind howled and rain poured down relentlessly. The sisters were nowhere to seek shelter, as they have not built any farm hut. Both sisters tried huddling under a tree for shelter, but the branches offered very little protection. They became soaked to the bone, and Saima, the younger sister, shivered uncontrollably in the cold. Seeing Saima's plight, Raima, the elder sister, heart ached. Filled with sorrow and sympathy, Raima made a vow. She cried out to her little sister, "Saima, I cannot bear to see you suffer like this. If we had a proper shelter or a garing to protect us, we would not be in such misery." She added, "I swear that whoever build a garing for us, be it an ant, a bird, or even a demon, I shall accept him as my husband." Nothing happened that day, and with that pledge, they returned home. Their spirits dampened as much as their clothes, all wet. The next morning when they arrived at their field, to their amazement, they found a beautiful new garing standing tall, ready to shelter them. Elated as well as surprised at the sudden appearance of the hut, Raima remembered the promise she made yesterday, and she knew that she had to honor the promise. At lunchtime, she gets uneasy feelings. She asked her younger sister Saima to call for her mysterious husband by singing a song. Raima was shocked. She was unsure of her elder sister's sudden change of nature, but had to obey, and she began to sing. Suddenly, to their dismay, a large python slithered out of the thick forest. Saima was terrified, but Raima, seeing the python as a handsome man, remained calm. As they meet, they began talking in an affectionate way. And when Python was around, Raima feels normal again. Every day, the pythons, who was Raima's husband, devoured most of their food, leaving the sisters with very little to eat. This continued daily. Raima's husband would eat with them, and the sisters seemingly grew thinner over the next few months. Days goes on. Their father, who was a priest in the village, soon noticed his two daughters becoming frail and weaker. Concerned, he asked Saima what had happened, and she told him the entire story. Outraged at the thought of a python being his son-in-law, the father devised a plan to kill the creature. One day he sent Raima somewhere away, ensuring she shouldn't be in the field. Then he and Saima went to the field. There in the field, Saima called for her brother-in-law as advised by her father. She called to him by singing like she usually does, and in a span of minute, the python appeared from the thick of a forest. Saima told the python that her father had came to meet him. She also suggested him to make sure that he shows respect by touching his father's feet. The python, unaware of his father's in-law trap, respectfully bent down just as told. And the father, who only sees a python, swiftly took out his machete and severed him in two pieces. He then threw his body into a deep gorge left to rot. Simultaneously, Raima felt an unsettling sensation. Her jewelry, her bangles, earrings, and chains suddenly starts breaking down from her body. It was at that moment she knew something terrible had happened and rushed back home. And from home, she hastens to the huk where her younger sister and father was. When Raima reached the huk, she desperately asked Saima where her husband was. Saima tearfully recounted how their father had killed the python and showed her where he was laid. Heartbroken, Raima ran to the gorge where her husband's body has been discarded. She found the lifeless form of the python in a field of kompui flowers, a type of wild shrub found in the jungle. Raima, however, she did not see a snake. In her eyes, he was her human husband, her companion for life. Grief consumed Raima as she held the python's head and wept. She pleaded with him not to leave her alone in this world. Her tears streamed down from her eyes and gradually formed a tiny rivulet due to her incessant cries. She continued to cry, her sorrow turning into a torrent of water that began to rise around her, while her father and younger sister watches on helpless. As the water level rose from her knees to her waist and finally to her head, it engulfed her completely, submerging her in the ever-growing river where she and her serpent husband unites forevermore. Today, that river is known as Kumtwi, and later as Kamti or Gomati River, revered by the people of Tripura. It also has a religious significance to it. This story teaches respect for personal choices, the sacredness of promises, and the depth of true love. Thanks for watching.